You're welcome. Let me take you through the details of those stories. Now, NDC Council of Elders members of the Council of Elders are in the Parliament House this afternoon as they try to resolve some disagreements that have revealed cracks in the front of the minority side. Already, one member of Parliament has resigned, while several others have publicly stated their displeasure over the approval of Ken Ofori-Atta and President Akufo-Addo's other ministerial nominees. Now, I'll show you a letter right now. In this letter, dated March 3 and addressed to Speaker Alban Kingsford Sumani Bagbin, MP for North Tong Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa explained that he was resigning from the appointment committee, quote, after days of careful reflection and thoughtful considerations. Joy News' sources say this latest decision was triggered by the approval by consensus of the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. We'll be talking to my colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, but that's the letter right there, titled Resignation from the Appointment Committee. And it says that I humbly present comradely felicitations. This is to formally convey my decision to discontinue my membership of the Appointment Committee after days of careful reflection and thoughtful considerations. I shall like to state that the reasons for this difficult decision are both personal and on principle. Respectfully do take note that my resignation is with immediate effect, and therefore I shall not be available for the vetting of nominees for deputy ministerial positions. May I extend to you, leadership of the House, the Committee of Selection and leadership of the Great National Democratic Congress, my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to serve as member of the Appointments Committee on the 6th, 7th and 8th Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Kindly accept, Right Honourable, the assurances of my highest esteem. And it is signed by the Honourable Member of Parliament, Okujeto Ablakwa, right there. Now, it's important for you to take note of the final, the final paragraph, because in that particular paragraph, he talks about the NDC. Let's get to Parliament. My colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, is there. He's been interacting with some of the NDC leadership that are in the House. We'll get to hear. Parker.
Hello, Gifty.
Parker, so let's begin with the reactions we have had so far. I mean, this story has broken. We've broken this story already. How has the reactions been so far, starting from where you are in Parliament?
Okay, so there was some division among members of Parliament, particularly those on the NDC side. There were those who believe that Mr. Okujeto Ablakwa is engaging in populism. He should have sought for more counsel, engage further before going public with the decision to resign from the appointment committee, because his decision largely affirms the perception that some leadership or the minority leadership may have been compromised in the approval of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. So they think that, well, he went overboard and crossed the line. There are those also who are within the NDC who believe that this is the personal decision. It's not the first time an individual has resigned from a committee. And so as a matter of principle, if he decides that he disagrees with the leadership and by so doing had decided to go his independent way or discontinue his membership with the committee, no one should begrudge him, or he shouldn't be subjected to attacks because of the decision he's made. So clearly, the minority MPs are sharply divided over the resignation of Mr. Okujeto Ablakwa. And he himself, in fact, the sources close to him say that he's very disappointed in the decision by the leadership to consent to the approval of Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. According to the source around him, he tells me that all the sleepless nights, the research, the questions that they asked the ministers who appeared before the vetting committee yielded no result. And so for him, that's the main reason why he decided to quit with the appointment committee and go and continue as the ranking on the other committees that he serves in Parliament.
Parker, the leadership of the NDC was in Parliament today. We've seen some of the pictures that you sent through. Johnson Asiedu Nketia himself and some others. Tell us, what were they doing there?
Okay, so the General Secretary of the party, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, the chairman of the party, Samuel Okosampofor, and some of the leadership as well. Like that, I saw Benjamin Kumbo, also here this afternoon, including the former finance minister Setepe as well. Now, in my interaction with the general secretary of the party, he tells me the discussion largely focused on the activities the NDC MPs are to embark upon when they go to the various constituencies. He says that there are some thank you tours that the NDC MPs will have to do since they want power. They've not done that yet. So it's the standard procedure that any time the House is going on recess, the leadership of, or let me say the national executives of the NDC meet with the NDC caucus in Parliament to give them a series of activities that they need to do when they go into their constituencies. And so the meeting wasn't focused on the approval of Mr. Ablakwa, neither did it focus on the resignation by Mr. Ablakwa from the appointment committee. Now, he argues that the decision to approve Mr. Ablakwa was taken by the party hierarchy, the national leadership. They asked the minority to approve Mr. Ablakwa by consensus. And so he doesn't see the fuss about people are disappointed and all of that. And he alleges that it's actually a creation of the media, that there is nothing like people are upset, people are incensed. But I still insisted that, well, we've spoken to some minority MPs and I cited the issue of Mr. Isaac Adongo, who clearly departed from the minority, broke ranks with them. In fact, to make a strong statement, he absented himself from Parliament on the day of approval. So that the Hazard would capture that he wasn't in the House. And so he had nothing to do with the approval of Mr. Furiata. He didn't want to associate himself with it in any way. But the General Secretary insisted that, well, for him, it was the decision was taken by the national body or the party hierarchy, and that is what we need to do. We need to focus on what the party intends to do. So that has been his reaction to what is happening. And lastly, he tells me that he is yet to receive the resignation letter from Mr. Ablakwa. Even though we know that Mr. Ablakwa sent a letter to the party, the NDC headquarters, yesterday. He delivered same to the Speaker of Parliament yesterday. And in fact, we've been told that even the Speaker has requested to meet him and discuss the resignation further. Sources say that they intend to prevail upon him to rescind his decision because, well, they acknowledge the good work he's doing on the appointment committee.
Interesting, Parker. You've also been speaking to now one of the former member of parliament or one of the NDC members that I'm going to talk to after you is Ras Mubarak, former member of parliament for Kumugu. His argument is that this amount, what has happened, amounts to a vote of no confidence in the minority leadership. You did speak to the minority leader himself. What did he say?
He strongly disagrees. He says that, and to quote him verbatim, he says he's still the minority leader and he's fully in charge and no further comment. So that was his reaction to the comment about the decision taken by Ablakwa. It's a vote of no confidence in him. And Gifty, of course, there has been speculations, there have been media report that Mr. Asedin Ketia's inclusion into the Parliamentary Service Board was an exchange of Kenofrata's approval. Well, Haruna Idrisi tells me this afternoon that Edison Laboratory has denied those allegations. He says that the conversation about Mr. Asedin Ketia being appointed as a member of the Parliamentary Service Board had started way before Ken was appointed or nominated as the finance minister. So it has nothing to do with that. The reason they delayed in constituting the Parliamentary Service Board was because they were struggling to appoint a female. They needed a female who could be part of the Parliamentary Service Board, and that dragged the constitution or the composition of the Parliamentary Service Board. So it had nothing to do with the approval of Mr. Kenofrata, as some individuals may have alleged.
Very interesting developments there, Parker. If you can hang on a bit, let me bring in Ras Mubarak into the conversation. Ras Mubarak is former member of parliament for Kumugu. He has described what is happening in parliament as an indictment, or if you like to quote his words, vote of no confidence in the leadership of the minority in parliament. Mr. Mubarak, thank you very much for your time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Gifty. It's good to see you.
Right. It's good to see you as well. But you're describing this as a vote of no confidence. How is someone's personal decision, as he put it in his letter, based on his own principle, how does that amount to a vote of no confidence in leadership of the minority?
Well, clearly, if he had confidence in the leadership and the way the leadership is handling issues, he wouldn't have had to resign from the appointments committee. You also must have heard earlier the Honorable Adongo, who had also distanced himself from the decision by the minority in parliament to lend a hand of support to the approval of the Honorable Ken Oforiatta. There are murmurs within the party, you know, from the base of the party. A lot of people are angry, a lot of people are upset. And if you look at the reasons that have been adduced, and I can, you know, give you a few quotes, Gifty. The minority leader in supporting the motion for approval said this, and I quote, "We are convinced that he's in breach of the law, in breach of the Bank of Ghana Act, in breach of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and in breach of the Public Financial Management Act." Those were the words of the minority leader. And he went further to argue that we will call for further investigation into the activities of Mackenzie. And he described the contract with Mackenzie as a rip-off. Now, Gifty, if a minister had ripped off or a minister who oversees a ministry oversees a rip-off of the state, one would expect that Parliament would trigger its oversight responsibility by holding him into account, you know, and not to actually give him an approval as has been given in this particular instance. So the rank and file of the party, Ghanaians generally, and several people obviously in Parliament are unhappy about this development. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that it is a vote of no confidence. The decision by the Honorable Adongo to distance himself, the decision by the Honorable Ablakwa to resign from the appointments committee, and the minorities leaders posturing and continued stay in office would further jeopardize, you know, the cohesion, you know, of the party in Parliament, you know. So I'm hoping that the leadership of the party at the party headquarters would actually wake up and smell the coffee and understand that what we are experiencing is a crisis, and the sooner we dealt with the crisis head on and brought on steps that would further stop the bleeding, as we are seeing in Parliament, the better for all of us. You know, what the rank and file of the party are expecting, Gift, if I may land on this.
Yes.
What the rank and file of the party are expecting is an election of the leadership in Parliament and not a coronation.
An election of the leadership in Parliament and not a coronation. I'm not quite sure what that means. I'll come back to that so that you break it down for me a bit more. But then